Jumping out of bus windows was a part of being a bus hopper and of hitting buses. And when it comes to how often I saw people jumping out of buses, I wouldn't say it was something I saw all the time. Like, I didn't see it every day, but I saw it enough that it wasn't a big deal when I saw it. And you never really knew when it was going to be your time to have to jump out of a bus window and just get up out of there and get to safety. You couldn't look at a driver and know if he was going to trip or not. Some drivers looked like they paid attention to absolutely nothing, and they were Hawkeye type of dudes. They paid attention to everything, they just did it kind of slyly. And for some other type of fools, they would kind of present themselves as these super hard people, as these very tough dudes. A lot of these dudes, as I've talked about previously, might have gotten in a lot of trouble back in the day. They might have been out there fighting with fools, and they were just very vigilant. But that didn't mean that they were going to scope everything you did. And some of these guys also like to talk a lot. So if somebody came on the bus that they wanted to chop it up with, that would be your moment to do your thing. And in riding the bus every single day, I feel like I might have saw this maybe every couple of months. And by the time I needed to jump out of a window and get to some safety, I'd seen it multiple times. And this was almost like a badge of honor for bus hoppers. There were just some things that you felt like needed to happen for your bus hopping experience to be a complete one. And when it comes to some of these things you would just check off the list, it would be meeting certain riders, hitting bus yards, and definitely jumping out of the window while the bus was moving or parked. And jumping out of a moving window sounds very dangerous, and that's because it is. And while that could and would happen, it definitely wasn't something you ever really saw. But the bus driver parking the bus, getting out of his seat, and yelling at somebody and telling somebody that they're gonna call the cops definitely happened more often. And yeah, you could sit there and wait for the cops, I don't know why you would, or you could fight with the bus driver, or you could try to stop him from making that call to the police, but the easiest thing to do would just be hit that emergency lever and get yourself out of there. But this was only really feasible on a bus that wasn't packed. If you tried to step over somebody, if you tried to step over their legs and put parts of your body in their face, you might have another problem on your hands. So really, I only ever saw fools jumping out of windows that didn't have anybody sitting next to them. But even if all the windows were blocked, you could still find your way off that bus. At the middle and back doors on buses in the city, there's a little emergency button that's protected by glass. And if you couldn't access a window, you would just have to break that glass, push that button, and push open those doors and get up out of there. And I definitely saw this happen as well, even when folks weren't tagging. This could happen if people were fighting on the bus. This could happen if people were using substances on the bus, or just somebody got into it with the bus driver and that dude locked all the doors and trapped everybody inside. And I remember when I first started talking about jumping out of windows, I didn't think it was all that big of a deal because so many of us did it. I don't know too many people that I wrote with that didn't jump out of a window at some time. And ultimately, I saw stuff like this happen so much that when it was my time to have to do it, it really wasn't a big deal to me. I got caught, the bus driver told me he was calling the cops, and I got off the bus. And once I put some space between me and that bus driver, I knew I was in the clear, and even if the cops passed by, they probably weren't gonna stop me. And having to jump out of a window was such a non-event that the very next day, I was back to it, bus hopping and hitting up.